Welcome, everybody, to the August 15th, 2024 meeting of the Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 23rd, 2023, signing the acts of 2023, extending certain COVID measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until March 31, 2025. This meeting of the Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder, people who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 167-380-706#, or join the meeting through the link on the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access, but we will post a record of this meeting in the town's website as soon as possible. In accordance with town policy, the public can speak to any issue or business item on the agenda during the meeting when recognized by the chair. I just take this opportunity to remind everybody to shut their cell phones or anything that makes noise off, please. And don't speak until you get all the way up to the microphone, as this meeting is being recorded and we need you to be at the microphone. We start off the meetings with a roll call of all board members to authorize this form of meeting, starting with Dave Veach.
David H. Veach, and I approve of this form of meeting.
Ed Acton, I approve.
David S. Nixon, I approve.
Paul C. Semple, I approve.
Lee Hovey, I approve.
Steve DeBoer, I approve.
Virginia Fenwick, I approve.
And Randy Potash, I approve as well. If any citizens or non-board members participating via the call, if there are any, please give the last digits of your phone number for identification purposes. We start the meetings with staff reading the hearing notice. Sarah Clark on my right. Then you or your representative will present your application or appeal. Anyone in favor will have a chance to speak up to 5 minutes, and there'll be a clock for that. That's very strict time. Then I will read all letters received by the board. Anyone against the application may speak or ask a question, again with a 5-minute limit. Applicant will have a chance to rebut testimony. Members will ask questions, hear further information, close the public hearing, deliberate, and usually we vote on the appeal or application. All votes are taken by roll call, and at the end of the meeting, we will close the meeting via verbal confirmation of the time and note the adjournment. I just want to make a comment that last time I abruptly cut a member short, which I should not have done, for something I thought he was basically talking about topics that were outside of the criteria. But indeed, we all have wide latitude to go ahead and have an opportunity to tie in any comments to the criteria. So I apologize for that, and indeed, we want members to be very creative and find all kinds of ways to tie us into not only the criteria, but to the purpose intent of the bylaw. So again, I stand corrected. If anyone had heard that, I was wrong. So with that, we don't have any minutes today. We will go with the first application, which is 37 Clamshell Drive.
Application number 24-077, All Realty Trust, care of Donnie Dunham, 42 Weano Avenue, 1164, Osterville, Mass. 02655. Owner of property located at 37 Clamshell Drive, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 16A, Block 29, Lot H76. The applicant seeks to modify special permit number 22-070, granted on October 27, 2022, which allowed for the demolition of the existing dwelling and the construction of a new dwelling. The applicant now seeks to modify this special permit to allow for additional building coverage. The approved building coverage was 860 square feet, and the proposed building coverage is 863 square feet, where 2,800 square feet is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 0 square feet of buildable upland where 20,000 square feet is required, and contains 5,674 square feet of land area where 40,000 square feet is required in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Sections 6 and 9, and Sections 5D and 8D2B of the Protective Bylaw. This was continued from July 25th, 2024.
Mr. Dunham, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Donnie Dunham, DeMartin Dunham Builders, here to represent the Al Real Estate Trust regarding the extra square footage. Sarah, if you don't mind putting up one of the photos, I think that would, thank you. So essentially the square footage discrepancy from the 860 that was approved to the 863 that was in the final site plan is related to a mistake that we made related to the portico on the front porch depicted in this picture. Essentially, the brackets that you see in this picture were made at 36 inches in depth when they should have been at 30 inches. If they were 30 inches multiplied by the width of the portico, which is about 7 feet, it makes up exactly 3 square feet of additional building coverage. It was an entirely a mistake in ordering on our part that we didn't recognize until the site plan was completed. So from our perspective, we thought it would be worth seeking the modification, given that there isn't necessarily an impact to the neighbors and there's not an impact to the setback, which is really important. The catwalk deck, if we go back to the site plan, Sarah, thank you. So the catwalk deck that basically leads you to that entrance is closer to the front setback than the actual overhang of the portico. The deck extends about a foot further than the front edge of the portico. So the portico itself is not closer to the setback. Yeah, that's basically it in a nutshell. Pretty simple issue that, we totally take responsibility for mispurchasing the custom brackets, which brought us here today.
Yeah, so you're hitting me on a good day for mistakes. Far be it from me.
Thanks, Randy.
No, thank you. So, misery likes company. Is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Please make it known. Seeing none, I don't have any correspondences, so we'll go to, is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question? Seeing none. Questions from the board? Dave Veach.
I have no questions.
We'll just go right around this way.
No questions.
I do. You know what? There's an art of business. It's called squeezing. And it's used to squeeze the last ounce of profit out of something. And it's practiced, and the squeezing is on the originator. And it's not necessarily passed along to the end user, but someone in between makes themselves a couple extra bucks. And I get the impression you're squeezing us for the last dollar that you can make out of this particular project. And I understand how the error happened, but I don't see why it shouldn't be corrected. Do you have any comment on that?
So I guess I just have a question. When you say squeeze, do you mean in terms of like us not absorbing the cost to fix it? Oh, we're fully willing to fix it. Like I will make that comment very clear that we are fully willing to fix it. With the permit lockout, we obviously can't do that prior to September 15th, but we will own the mistake if this has nothing to do with profit.
Well, it would if you had to do it.
It would, and it would totally impact us. It's 100% on us, and we're willing to do it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Paul, questions?
I have no questions.
Lee,
No questions.
Steve,
Steve has no questions.
and Judy, any questions?
I do. Could you just explain, so the portico right now is
It's
3 square feet?
Nope, so the portico is roughly 21 square feet. So it's
That
three.
portico?
It's
Oh.
3 feet in depth and 7 feet in width because the brackets need to be outside of the
Okay.
door. So if it was reduced to 30 inches in depth, multiplied by the 7, it gives you
Okay.
roughly
Yeah, I
that
think from
coloring.
that view, it looked smaller than it does from the other view,
Yeah.
so, okay, that's,
Yep,
so it wouldn't be as simple as just saying, okay, no portico. It would have to just be a reduced portico.
correct, yep.
All right, thank you.
But it would essentially be taken off and rebuilt, just given the structure. But yeah,
Okay, Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. So deliberations. Ginny?
Well, I think you said, Donnie, that the portico doesn't go over any farther than the deck. So by reducing it, you're really providing coverage for someone who's standing there in the rain like a guest? Not really, right? You would reduce the, oh, I'm asking more questions now,
No, it's
sorry.
okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I know that this, I've heard a previous chairman say, you know, that this board is not the Board of Construction Forgiveness, but I do think that it's a small, it's a plausible mistake, and it's a small thing. And really, I like having some portico over the front, because otherwise the building is very flat.
Okay, Steve? We'll just go right around now.
Yeah, I think the fact that it doesn't extend beyond the width of that walkway, by reducing it, so you'd be reducing it by 6 inches, the depth.
yes.
And the fact that it doesn't extend beyond the walkway there, you know, we've had discussions about corner boards, adding square footage that weren't factored in. I think this is a mistake, and I don't think it's detrimental to anything.
Yep, Lee?
I agree with Steve. It, you know, was a mistake, not detrimental. I don't have a problem with the extra 6 inches.
And Paul?
I agree. It seems to me it's basically de minimis. It's an honest mistake, and given the circumstances, it's certainly not creating a situation that's substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Dave Nixon?
Well, I think I stated my case. It just seems wrong to me to give a pass. And this happens, unfortunately, more frequently than it should. As Ms. Fenwick said, we're not the Chatham Board of Forgiveness of construction errors, but we end up being that way. You know, there was a time where we could put the squeeze on someone squeezing us. And Sarah has a brick in her bag that if I tried that, she'd whack me with it because it's a no-no. What I meant is we would say something like, tell you what, if you make a generous donation to the Chatham, you know, let's say low-income housing fund, then we'll help you out. But I can't say that, and so don't even think about doing it, okay? But I just think, you know, there are ways that we can help you out in other ways. And I think, as you know, Ms. Fenwick and I helped you out a couple of weeks back, a couple of months
100%.
back now.
Yep,
Well, that's a different story.
Yep.
This, your error, you admit it, should be corrected as to what we approved. So I'll be voting no.
Yeah, I think it's an honest mistake that can happen in the field. Unfortunately, it does happen. It could be corrected. It would take a bit of work, and I don't think it's worth the effort. I would, if I was voting, I would vote to let it stay and go from there, move on. Thank you.
thanks.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with most of my fellow members. So. You know, this helps illustrate the complexity of the construction process in many respects. I mean, when I think about it, sometimes it's, you know, we get things that come back to us sometimes as a result of a mistake and things. But I think these kinds of things can happen very easily. And this particular kind of thing can happen very easily in the field. And, you know, it doesn't get caught until they're doing the as-built, you know, and so, and it ends up back before us. So I think that it's, as to echo what Paul said, to apply the standard of more, substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, not at all. And had it been presented as such initially, I would have had no problem with it. So I will support it.
And so I would say two things. I agree with what Davey just said. If it had been before us like that, it wouldn't even be an issue. And for me, if it got this project any closer to a neighbor or any setback, I would vote no, tell you right now. But given what I just said and what my colleagues have said, I would support it. So, Paul?
I'll move to approve the application as submitted.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
No.
Jenny?
Yes.
And Paul?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Almost unanimous, but in any event, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you next time. All right, whenever Sarah's ready, we're gonna go to Main Street, 1369, I think. Oh, sorry, yep.
Application number 24-081, three-story on Main Realty Trust, care of William F. Riley Esquire, P.O. Box 707, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owner of property located at 1369 Main Street, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 10E, Block 14, Lot D2. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the demolition of the existing dwelling and the construction of a new dwelling. The proposed dwelling will comply with all bulk and dimensional requirements of the bylaw, but is considered a substantial alteration, and under the second except clause of Section 6 of Chapter 40A, such substantial alteration requires the grant of a special permit. The existing building coverage is 1,366 square feet, 11%, and the proposed building coverage is 1,332 square feet, 10.8%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 12,370 square feet, where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the protected bylaw.
All right, Mr. Riley, whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much. So this is the project that was before you back in March. And the person who did the presentation wasn't very well prepared in terms of providing you with the information you need to make a truly informed decision. So what I've done working with Tim Meager, who is the developer, he's in the back row against the wall, is gone around and checked out the adjoining properties. The building has been reduced in height by 1.25 feet. The cupola is gone. Excuse me. But I think the most important thing that wasn't made clear to you during the last meeting is just how modest this building is. In looking at the hearing, the word massive was used, I think, by almost every member of the board. And so the building is 28 feet, 5 inches high, measured from the average grade. But, this property is located on the top of a small rise. And so the average grade is actually 3 feet below the top of foundation. So the structure itself, from top of foundation to the ridge, is 25 feet 3 inches. Not exactly massive. They use the gambrel gable end to maximize the room on the second floor, but that section of the house is 30 by 28. Again, not massive. So I think that I'd ask you to reconsider, those of you who thought it was too massive. It's not as you know, you guys aren't design people, is it substantially more detrimental? And so when you look at this property and, compare it with other properties in the neighborhood, so what I do is, we did a little slideshow driving along Main Street. So started at this building at 1455, which is obviously an office building with apartments above. Next slide. That's the accountant's building there, 1445. Next, yeah. This is the cute little red house that's very modest and very small. Next one. All right, now, this was a surprise to me. So here you have a standard cape. It's got a little addition on it. They sell maps there, the maps of antiquity. 4,590 square feet, because it's, you can't see it because of the plantings, but that's the size of the building. So next slide. Okay, so on the left side of the building, pardon me, on the right side is the building of Mr. Kilroy, who came to the last meeting and objected rather strenuously to our proposal, and the proposal was made then. And one of the problems he had with it was the fact that he was looking at it, the garage doors and the end of the building. So we took a picture of the end of his building. So if you're driving up Vineyard Avenue towards Main Street, that's what you see. So I think that's kind of a classic case of the pot calling the kettle black, because he didn't like looking at our garage doors. So, but the other most important thing about this house is it's kind of a hodgepodge of designs, but it has almost 4,600 square feet of gross floor area. 1,500 square feet of gross floor area, more than we have. So again, he used the word massive also. And so in comparison to the buildings around us, we're not massive. In fact, I don't know how many of you know the Swenson family. They own a Pilgrim Village across the street. They have a family house there up on the hill. Peter's a tall guy, Peter Swenson, 6'5" or so. So he's got a big house, which big guys should do anyway. The house directly across the street, we didn't take a picture of it, but the house directly across the street is over 7,000 gross floor area. So if you want to take the next picture, it's our locus. So the new building, we have enlarged the wing, the garage wing, but it's only like 4 feet taller than that building. And next slide. And so this is the last slide in the row. This is the house next door. Used to belong to Freeman Phillips Farm, cornfield. Anyway, but that's got 2,611 square feet. So if you look at the sheet on the back of my handout, and we start with the top building is Peter Swenson's house across the street, 7,160 gross floor area. Mr. Kilroy's house, 4,592 square feet. 13 Vineyard Ave is the house directly behind us, which is a standard cape, full cape. And I was surprised, but they have over, they have 3,200 square feet of gross floor area. 27 Vineyard, which is the next house behind that, has over 4,000 square feet of gross floor area. 30 Vineyard Ave is the house directly behind Mr. Kilroy's house, and that's set back from the road and it's pretty modest, 2,200 square feet. So drop down to 1369. The existing building is 1,927 square feet of gross floor area. And what we're proposing is 3,422. So what the new design does is it changes the left-hand side of the house from 30 by 26 and a half to 30 by 28, but they maximize the second floor. Do you have the existing floor plan handy, Sarah? So if you look at the existing floor plan, you can see, so the left-hand side is the first floor of the existing building. And the right-hand side is the second floor of the existing building. But you see it down in the lower right, you see it's a salt box. So they lose over a third of the room on the second floor. So what the new design does, if you can put up the new floor plan, is, so you can see both the first floor and the second floor utilize the entire footprint of the main building. The area on the second level above the garage, again, they don't get the full area because the roof shape comes down and they use dormers to provide lights. So the floor area, habitable space on the second floor, 950 square feet. Habitable space on the first floor, 1,236 square feet. Again, so I know we like to use gross floor area, and because of the changing grade, there is a walkout here, so you can't see that bottom level. But the actual living areas of the property are very modest and certainly not massive to any degree. A couple of members were concerned about the mass of the L for the garage. And so I wanted to point out that the L is only 18 feet long as you look at it from the front. And if you look over on the right-hand side of that picture, upper level, you can see that it's set back 6 feet from the front wall of the existing building. So I mean, when you look at the front, you say, oh, wow, that's big, but when you realize it's actually set back 6 feet. So there's no straight, long wall to project mass. All right, and another thing, when we talk about mass, we also talk about scale and siting. So scale is, how does the house fit into the neighborhood? I think that's what scale means. And so I think by the gross floor areas of the adjoining properties, I think it's fair to say that we are not out of scale with the adjoining properties. Siting is another thing. So if this house were 20 feet off the front street line, well, you think, well, it's too much. We're as far back on the lot as you can get. The back wall of the house is only 16 feet from our back property line, which is where the existing back wall was. So in terms of sighting, from the streetscape, thank you, Sarah, we're doing whatever we can to reduce the apparent mass of the building as viewed from Main Street and from Vineyard Avenue. So another thing, people had the impression, at least I got the impression from watching the meeting, that people thought the building was, because it's up on a rise, it's high. But in reality, the top of foundation of the building is elevation 37.7, which happens to be the elevation of Main Street. In fact, that actually starts at 38 if you look on the upper right corner there, 37, 36, and 35. So our building is actually, even with the top of foundation, front door, is even with Main Street. And the building's only 25 feet tall. So I'm going to ask you to think about that, and I hope you would agree with me that the design has done what they can to reduce the impact, the visual impact of the house from the streetscape. So what I do is have you run through the criteria. So adequacy of the
You've
size
probably
of,
already gone through them all, if that's okay. I think that we feel you've gone through them all. If anybody on the board wants him to go through the criteria, please say so. No? No. And they were emailed to all the board members.
so you don't want to hear me talk for another 15 minutes?
No comment. If that's okay with you, because we do have them in writing and we had them in advance. And
Well, we
this is
try
the
to,
second round with this for us as well.
yeah, I understand,
But is that okay?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to make one request.
Sure.
If people have concerns, will they make them in the form of a question so I can address them?
We'll do our best, absolutely.
All right, great,
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah. All right, so is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak for this application? In favor? Please make it known.
Yes, hi, my name is William Underwood, last four digits of my phone number, 5012.
And you a neighbor or a Chatham resident?
Yeah, first I'd like to thank Sarah and Chantel for their help via email and communication, but Sarah, if you could pull up slide 12 that Mr. Riley had up there.
Are you the builder for this property?
No, he lives next door.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
He's a friar, too. Like
Yes,
me?
I do have, I have a soon-to-be junior at Providence.
Well, I'm wearing my PC tie today. Go Friars.
So, and Mr. Raleigh, thank you for your communication with me with regards to Mr. Meager taking care of the property before my wife and children moved in for the summertime, so I appreciate that. I just wanted to, and going back to the video and notes from the last meeting, obviously this also has a historic district, implication involved. And, as the chairman stated, streetscape is a big importance with this property. My home is the home in the back, Modest Cape. And, we feel the new structure, and there was a 3D design that was here that really 4 feet high, and, this garage area, it would really dwarf my Modest Cape that my dad purchased in 1981. So Chatham's a special place for myself, and my wife and brother-in-law are in the stands or in the room as well. So,
Sir, can I just ask you, are you speaking in favor? Because that's where we're at.
No, I'm sorry, I'm speaking.
Okay, so-
I'm speaking.
Okay, so I'm
sorry.
gonna stop you and we're gonna get to that. If
Oh,
you're
I
not
apologize.
speaking in favor, I'm going to stop you, because I like to stay
Gotcha.
strictly within the rules. Okay, so stay tuned. All right, now I will read the two correspondents, unless there's anybody here that wishes to speak in favor, or that's on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor. Seeing none. Okay, we have a letter from the HBDC, the Historic Business District. Actually, first one is from Judith Giorgio, I apologize. Judith Giorgio is a health agent. She writes on 8/13/2024 that she reviewed the plan to demo and reconstruct the property. It's connected to town sewer. It's approved for 3 bedrooms. Additional flow must be applied for at the sewer department. I have no objections to this application. Now from the HBDC, this was back, they heard this application on December 20th, 2023. They rendered the following decision. The commission voted 5-0 to approve the demolition of the dwelling at 1369 with the standing conditions. Any changes or alterations made need to get approval from the HBDC. They voted 4-1-0 approving the construction of the new dwelling at 1369 Main. Windows shall be white. The applicant shall return for approval on hardscaping. Looks like they had 2 meetings. In any event, they approved it. So now getting to anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against. Let me just first see if there's anybody in the audience that wishes to speak against. Yes, sir. Please head to the mic. Take your time. And we'll get back to the person online in a couple minutes.
Hi, my name's Steve Kilroy, and I want to thank you folks the last time that we had this meeting of watching out for all the neighbors and the best interest of the town. And I had a couple of questions about the plans. It appears that the plans were pretty much the same as the plans previously showed. And other than like the cupola was on and the trim on the house was white instead of black. But on the height, there was some questions that I had. The existing height of the height of the existing building, according to the plan, was 28 foot 7 inches. And the height from that, could you bring that picture up, please?
The existing photo of the house?
The side view where the garage is, please. Is this that light that you can use? Is there a trick to it?
Yeah, just push the button.
Okay, there it is, okay. No, on the existing house, please. The height here is from here to here was 28 feet 8 inches, and that was taken from the level of the bottom of the garage. That spot right there is about a foot to maybe 18 inches below where the street would be, so the garage is down a little bit. And could you bring up the view of the proposed house, please? Okay, on the side here, they have their grade, average grade height is 7 foot 7 inches higher than where the bottom of the garage is. And it also appears, like Mr. Riley, I believe, said, the property itself is filled in. There isn't a foot to a foot and a half dip from the street to where the bottom of the garage door is. It's raised up. So basically the height of the whole building is higher than what is proposed, in my opinion.
We could ask the building inspector, we can stop your clock. We could stop your clock for a moment and have the building inspector give an unbiased explanation of that first, before we get to Mr. Riley later. So you could maybe set him straight, Jay?
So excuse me, the building height is determined by the average grade plane,
Okay,
which is on final grade, not on existing grade.
okay,
So they're proposing to fill the front yard. You can see all the contours that arc around the front. So
Okay.
they're filling the whole front half of the yard to elevate the grade plane, because that's where we measure the building height from. So
Okay.
it's not saying that the building's gonna be at the same height as the existing. It is gonna go up, but the building height is proposed at 28 feet, 5 inches.
okay, so the base of where the garage is, up to that 7 foot 7 inch average grade that you're talking about, would still come up a foot to a foot and a half.
The average grade is gonna come up from as a result of the filling of the front yard.
Exactly, so the height of the building, again, would be that much higher.
The elevation of the ridge of the building will be higher, but the building height, as we measure it from grade plane, will be under the 30 feet at 28 feet,
Correct.
5 inches.
The appearance of the building, because of the grade being raised up, will be higher when you come around the corner.
The ridge of the building will be higher.
Right, okay. So that would be,
Oh, okay, so we're gonna leave it at
Okay.
that. Go back to any other comments?
yes,
Against?
so the building, the height of, total with all that adding and all that stuff there, the height of the building would be roughly 36 feet.
It won't be. It won't be.
Okay.
It'll be what it's listed as.
Okay, then I'll leave that part alone. I'll
Yeah.
go, this other part was, what we had talked about was the building being conforming and compatible with the area houses, the houses on the main street and all that. And it really is not really conforming, and I don't think the word that Mr. Riley used that I had said and the board said, I think I said it was overwhelming when you come around the corner. And just to clarify something else, can you bring up the picture of house number 10 Vineyard Ave, please? Okay. This isn't my house. I live in the modest cape next door to that, number
Okay.
30.
Good to know.
So that's nothing to do with mine. That's why when you come around the corner and you see this large, massive building, and I'll use massive this time, but it's a little overwhelming. And this is one of the reasons why I objected to it, because I'm the next house this way, and I do look at this all the time.
Okay.
So I
Just so you know, you got 25 seconds left.
Okay, I want to then, I use the 25 seconds by saying thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
For all
You're
that you
welcome.
do. Thank you,
Glad you came.
thank you.
Very good. All right. Anybody else wish to speak against before I go back to the gentleman online? No? Okay, gentleman online. Continue.
Hi, William Underwood again. Sarah, again, if you can go to picture 12. Thank you, appreciate that. So again, my home is the house in the back. Obviously, Mr. Riley had a bunch of comparisons. I feel I'm probably the most affected because 4 feet high is really going to have a, from a scale sighting and mass situation, it's going to affect me the most. I can actually see White's Pond across the street through that top window, so quote unquote, I do have a water view. But anyways, long story short, last meeting, right, not more detrimental, compatibility to the neighborhood, the impact to scale to the houses and focus on the neighborhood. And I feel that the structure and the plans today will have a detrimental effect on the neighborhood. And I'm all for updating that property. Obviously, there was a tragic accident and a fire, from Mr. Mager's perspective, right, he's got a great opportunity to build a beautiful home. Unfortunately, I think the home is not compatible to the neighborhood, and that's I'm against the existing plans in place. So thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. So is there anybody else that wishes to speak against this application anywhere? Nope. Mr. Riley, you want a chance to rebut?
Well, first of all, I want to apologize to Mr. Kilroy for saying he owned 10 Vineyard. Yeah, I think, I understand it's difficult when there's change. We see that all the time, you as members, me as somebody presenting change. But the thing I'd like to have you focus on is the fact that the house, from the top of foundation to the ridge, is 25 feet, 3 inches tall. And if you go back to the picture that Mr. Underwood had you put up there, I'll bet his house is about the same height.
Can you restate what you say the house is? Because that's not what we have. The height.
No, I know. The height from the average grade plane is 28 feet, 5 inches.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The height of the building, as your eye sees it, actually sees it, from the top of foundation to the ridge is 25 feet, 3 inches. That's because the average grade plane is 3 feet below the top of foundation. So that's a normal thing when you have a house that's on a sloping lot. So, it's the building itself, from top of foundation to the ridge, the proposed building is 4 feet taller than this building. So, I don't think it's massive, because it's only 25 feet tall from top of foundation. In gross floor area, as a measure, we clearly are not out of scale with the neighborhood. Although, Mr. Underwood's house is 3,202 square feet, so I don't think at 3,400 square feet, again, I don't think we're out of scale. We're 300 square feet more on gross floor area. So, I think we all agree, number 5 is the most important criteria. Scale, siding, and mass, and impact on views and vistas and the streetscape. So, when people turn into Vineyard Ave, they will see the end of the building. But it's a flashing moment. They drive by and they're gone. In general, the concern is, what's the impact on the streetscape being where the house fronts? So I'd ask you to keep, that in mind.
All right, so this is rebuttal time, so you're going to get some questions from the board.
Okay,
Are you
sure.
comfortable with that? Building commissioner wants to have a comment.
Just quickly, the site plan calls the top of foundation at elevation 37.7, and then the architectural plans call the top of the finished first floor 37.7. So there's a discrepancy of maybe a little over a foot right there. Just throwing it out there. The 25 feet Mr. Riley is speaking of is from that elevation 37.7 to the ridge. I don't think it's necessarily the top of foundation.
No.
Okay, 26 feet. But,
Okay, all right.
But they did lower, they did lower the building 1.75 feet, so that the first floor is now 9 feet from subfloor to soft floor instead of the previous 10 feet.
All right, if that's okay with you, we'll go with questions from the board, and you'll have more time. Dave Veach. Oh, no, we're questions.
Yeah, I have some questions, because there's a lot of numbers being thrown at us. I'm trying to read some of the numbers off the plans. It's a little difficult, but I'm doing okay with it. Mr. Riley, and I think this is in agreement with something you stated, but I think I pulled this information from the plans. The existing house, the ridge existing house is at elevation 60.82.
That's correct.
And the upper ridge of the proposed house is at elevation 64.05.
No, that's right. Sarah, we had a little deficiency on the survey side. So we submitted a revised site plan on July 19th. And even though it bears the same date as the original plan and doesn't mention a revision,
So how did you expect us to
This-
know all that?
This is,
oh, wait a minute. Did you receive that, Sarah?
given the critical nature of what we're considering, the fact that the site plan doesn't agree with the architectural plans with respect to elevations and things is enough for me to say we don't have enough information.
And this is Dave
So,
Beach.
so we're being.
I get your point.
Do you think, excuse me, I'm in questions. Do you think we have enough information, Mr. Riley?
Under the circumstances, if you don't have the revised plan, the answer is no.
Well, the plan I have says, the only thing I can see, and so the other thing is, it would be helpful if your engineer provided a little more information. We have some local, other engineers who will call out top of foundation, ridge elevation, et cetera. That might be, help us on the site plan with respect to existing and proposed. All I see on this latest site plan we got is, that gives me any of that information, proposed house, top of foundation, 37.7. It doesn't give me anything about the existing foundation on the site plan. I pulled that stuff from the architectural drawings that got also attached. So it's difficult enough for us to ascertain what the actual numbers are. And given that various numbers are being tossed around by different people in the meeting, I just don't think we're in a good place. So, do you agree?
Yes, if you don't have this most recent plan, then I agree.
If the most recent, I would hopefully the most recent plan would give a little more information than what I'm getting off. This is, you said something about not being dated. So this is certified plot plan, latest revision 2/1/24.
Right.
Is what this shows. And this is the one proposed, house top of foundation elevation 37.7.
So Dave,
Right,
pause this for 1 second. Sarah wants to chime in.
Yeah.
That is the correct plan with the proposed ridge top being elevation 62.82. They did not update the revision date. I have the stamped, where we stamp it in when it comes into community development,
Yeah,
everything that comes through our door. That is the correct plan, however, it does not match. The original plan we got when it was filed was the old plan. The board never got that, because I made sure that you didn't get that before they came here, because I wasn't gonna advertise something that I wasn't certain was correct.
so do you think it's too much for me to ask for, because I'm trying to transcribe from the engineers to the architect's plans. Do you think it's unreasonable to ask that one or the other, I think the engineer's plan, I would hope to be showing me top of foundation existing, top of foundation proposed, ridge existing, ridge proposed.
And
we can still go through questions, just for your,
Sure.
Your benefit,
Yeah,
if you'd
that'd be
like.
great.
Yeah, it seems like it's way too much confusion, and we're being asked to make a very important decision that has a number of viewpoints being expressed to us. And I just feel like I've got to have better coordination.
And you
So,
will.
Thanks.
All right. Ed Acton, questions, just. Any comments you want to make that might be helpful to the applicant?
No questions.
No? Dave Nixon?
Nothing in addition to what already been said.
All right, Ginny?
Yeah, I'd like to say two things. So, Mr. Riley, you opened your comments today saying that everyone, almost everyone, if not everyone, last time mentioned the word mass. And you're right, I rewatched the hearing too. But there's something else that everyone asked, which was, or not asked, but comments that the majority, maybe not everyone, talked about streetscape, the historic house, it's being so important to the streetscape. Agreed with my colleagues, the gambrel is a stretch. Don't think it fits in the neighborhood. So it wasn't so much about mass as it was style. So my question is, was the style of the house considered, it wasn't any part of the changes that we observe. Was that considered, changing that? Because that was a lot of the comments.
No, I understand that. And your area of responsibility is scale, sighting, and mass. You're not a design review board, so if the scale, sighting, and mass fits in the neighborhood, then, beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Well, criteria 5 says including views, vistas, and streetscapes, and I'm talking about a lot of those comments were about streetscape. The historic business district being where this house is in particular.
Well, I don't mean to denigrate historic. The historic business district bylaw was passed, actually a special act of the legislature in 1985. And what they wanted to do was try to control Main Street to make sure the buildings that were built were compatible with the buildings in close proximity. Once they've made that decision, I think that issue is settled, that they've issued a certificate of appropriateness. So if the zoning board can say, we don't think it's appropriate, then we might as well tell the Historic Business District Commission to, stop bothering me.
Well, I'm merely making the point that at our last hearing, when we gave a lot of feedback very consistently on mass and streetscape, particularly it being on Main Street, it looks like you changed two things. You removed the cupola and you reduced the house, which we appreciate. You reduced the height of the house, 1 foot 2 inches. Is that the only change? Because the comments that we gave last time were more comprehensive than just height.
Yeah, I know it, but I don't think the information you received at the last meeting provided you with sufficient information to actually understand the mass of the building. Because the building is only 25 feet or 26 feet tall, and that's not a massive building. The main section is only 30 feet wide. That's not a massive building. The garage section is set back 6 feet, so there's no straight line that goes 48 feet, which is the maximum length of the building. It's broken up. Why is it broken up? Because it reduces the apparent mass of the building. So, I understand people don't like gambrels, all right? I understand that. But again, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and I think the beauty decision is supposed to be made by the HBDC.
Okay, thank you.
But we have your comments, and
Yeah, okay.
obviously the owner knows.
Steve?
Yeah, I just have one question, and it's really for my own edification, I guess. And it kind of goes back to the ridge heights again. But on the, I guess it's SK 101, where we're talking about the existing top of ridge. And the overall measurement, I think it's 28.7, seems to start at a point that is level with the garage floor. But then if you go to the proposed drawing, I guess it's A20. The ridge measurement is taken from a point beginning at almost the top of the garage doors. Not that picture, another picture. A20.
I'm getting dizzy looking
I
at all
know.
the plans flashing
Yeah, I know.
by.
So the base measurement seems to be taken at a line that's even with the windows of the garage doors.
Well,
So that's almost a 7-foot difference right there. So I just need someone to explain to me why the two measurements can't be taken from the same place.
because, as the building inspector explained, that's not how we measure the height of a building in Chatham.
Well, it's how you measured the existing building. You measured it from the garage.
First of all, I didn't do
I
it.
know- well,
An
that's how-
architect did it, and you know, engineers don't trust
No,
architects
no,
to get the
okay,
numbers right.
I
So
shouldn't
that's all I
say
can
you.
tell you. No, I know.
meant in general.
I understand, but I'm just saying.
The measurement for the existing building was taken from the garage floor. The measurement from the new building is taken from the top of the garage doors.
It was done by an architect who's not an engineer, and I don't know what his basis was for doing that, you know. we
But
have to-
that changes the overall height of the ridge then. It adds almost 7 feet to the measurement of the proposed.
Excuse me
building.
one second, the building commissioner is chomping at the bit here.
So Steve, the existing house has its own grade plane. They're showing it at elevation 32 or whatever it is at the garage doors. The new proposal has a different grade plane entirely because we don't hold to the existing grade. We go with finished grade. So the proposed grade plane is elevation 34.4, which is 2.4 feet higher than the existing grade plane. So
Okay.
that's,
I just need to try to understand it because
Yeah.
I don't, it
It's a
seems
moving
like you're
target because
adding
we
a lot of
don't-
fill and it's being measured from a different point.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Lee?
So I have a couple of comments regarding the mass as well, or questions. I rewatched the meeting from March as well, and I know my concern was the mass of the garage and that wing of the house, as you look at it from Vineyard. And I think a lot of other people are concerned with that as well. My question is, would the owners consider reducing the size of the garage? Because you have a garage, a kitchen, and then a large bedroom.
Not that large, but yeah,
It's pretty
a bedroom.
nice, pretty nice. I think if you were to relocate that bedroom at somewhere else and just have a nice vaulted ceiling in your kitchen, that might help with the mass of the garage
Right.
wing. The other thing that might help, and I don't know if anybody has considered this or not, is some major landscaping plans that we could see as well, that maybe would, hide
Mitigate, all
or help mitigate the mass.
right.
And Paul?
Well, I agree with Dave Each. We need to get clarified plans that show us the numbers that are consistent, whether they're prepared by the architect or prepared by the engineer, so that we can understand what we're doing here. Because I don't think we can act based on the information we have before us now. The real problem, it seems to me, is not so much the square footage as it is the orientation of the building and the garage to Vineyard Avenue. It seems to me as if when you look at it from Main Street, you don't see anything because everything is covered up. But when you look at it from Vineyard Avenue, which is the view that most people have when they take the corner there, it's a substantial change to what is there, and I think detrimental. So that it makes more sense to perhaps reorient the whole building arrangement. I don't know whether this is possible or not, but I mean, maybe you want to front it towards Vineyard Avenue and have something that goes perpendicular to Main Street. And you can present then a view towards Vineyard Avenue,
I can see.
which would be consistent with what else is in the neighborhood. The other places that you're citing in terms of square footage that may have large square footage are really set back a great distance from Vineyard Avenue. And they're raised on a hill. They really aren't comparable in terms of the way this property looks, given its orientation. So those are some comments that I could offer as to where we could go from here.
And
Thank you.
I don't know if you watched HBDC, the first and
I
and
didn't.
second, but they made them spin the house around this way. They didn't like, right, Steve? They didn't like the idea of it being the other way. So I imagine the applicants probably, their head is probably spinning right now. But I will just go out, right out and say it, that another member said last time that, you know, you have a gambrel here, and that is contributing to the apparent mass, and maybe that's not the right design for this. So if you really want to make your client's life easier, change the design, because this design does not fit with the neighborhood. No one likes it. That's the elephant in the room here, is that house is ugly. It just is. And you can't buff a turd here, you know, you can't put lipstick on a pig, all of that, because it all contributes to the mass. This design is, you know, impacts the visual character of this neighborhood, and no one likes it. So I would just, you know, this is just all informational at this juncture. So that's my 2 cents.
We'd like a continuance to your next available meeting.
October.
Can I make one further comment?
Yeah, Dave Beach, go ahead.
So, Bill, I'd just like to say, I just want to clarify my remarks. So what I'm looking for is because, you know, I see the drawings, I see the different things. But frequently when I go out in the field or I look at it and I'm wanting to make my own assessment, I need something that gives me comparisons to the building that's there that I can rely on. So then I can visualize, say, okay, it's going to be 4 feet higher and the garage is at the same height, the garage floor is the same height, something. That's what would really help me. And further, I'd like to say that I came in here thinking or feeling, and I'm still leaning this way to some degree, and I've said before that gambrels are not my favorite particularly, but I try to be very careful not to let the style be the deciding point for me, a style be a deciding point. So just kind of speak a little differently than what Randy just said. Because we are a zoning board, and we do have the HBDC, which is charged with aesthetic considerations. So that's, thanks.
Mr. Riley, I would suggest you ask for withdrawal. I'll tell you why. There's just so much going on here that a continuance, to me, is just too soon. And that's simply my comment on that.
I appreciate the comment, but, you know, the previous application requested a withdrawal, and that was in March, and here we are in September. And the owner of the property is present. He's a builder. I'm sure he's already thinking about design changes he wants to make. The architect works for him. So I believe that we can come back in a very short period of time with design modifications and the information, consistent information between the architect and the plan.
Sarah, what do you think?
If Mr. Meager doesn't mind, because there's a lot of timing, you will have to go back to the historic board. I have a couple questions about when you realistically can have the plans available. So when you're requesting your continuance, we know which date to go to. If you were on the October 10th meeting for the Zoning Board of Appeals, I would need all revised plans in hand no later than September 9th. meaning you would need to be in front of the HBDC prior to that. The only meeting that we have for HBDC is September 4th and the 18th. You would need to file by next Wednesday to be heard to be heard on September 4th. You would need to file by September 4th to be heard on September 18th. Is that possible?
Well, probably not, but how about the second meeting in October?
That would be October 24th, and it would give you that would give you until September, it would, the 9th, the 2nd, and the 16th. I would need everything no later than September 23rd.
All right, great, that'd be good.
So you're looking for a continuance to October 24th.
Yes.
Paul?
I'll move to grant the requested continuance to October 24.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Nixon?
I vote no.
Ginny?
Yes.
And Paul?
All votes yes.
And I'm going to vote no as well. I think you should really just come back with some very organized information.
So that was a vote on a continuance. Now the board would need to make a formal vote on the application.
Oh, and then they wouldn't be able to come back for 2 years?
Correct.
All right,
Well,
I withdraw, I
Or
withdraw my vote.
or they can request a withdrawal.
Or
Yeah,
you could ask for withdrawal. I don't want to cause you 2 years, so I
no,
apologize.
no, I appreciate that.
I don't.
But it's already been from March.
This
get
is
to hear.
August now. We're in August.
Right, so we'd like to come back in October and finish it up.
All right. Design, yeah. You said you're gonna work on all that, all the
Yep.
things you heard.
Yep,
Okay, all right. I'll change my vote to yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have to sign the other one? or No. No. So we're going to 52 Captain Richards. When Sarah's ready, she will read the application.
Application number 24-083, Harold Burke and Susan Leahy Burke, care of William G. Litchfield Esquire, 330 Orleans Road, North Chatham, Mass. 02650. Owners of property located at 52 Captain Richards Way, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 10D, Block 102, Lot R13. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the construction of an addition. The existing dwelling and proposed addition will comply with all bulk and dimensional requirements of the bylaw, but is considered a substantial alteration, and under the second except clause of Section 6 of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, such substantial alteration requires the grant of a special permit. The existing building coverage is 1,052 square feet, 7.8%, and the proposed building coverage is 1,934 square feet, 14.3%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming, and that it contains 13,500 square feet, where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 5B of the protective bylaw.
Attorney Litchfield, welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Bill Litchfield here on behalf of Harold and Susan Burke, who are over on the left-hand side, along with their builder and engineer, Dan Speakman, who is usually quite careful with numbers. Sarah Clark is not only extremely efficient, she's also prescient. She scheduled this hearing, which we anticipate to be brief and simple, knowing what was before you prior to this afternoon. So we appreciate that, Sarah. Maybe the site plan could go up and we will show what is going on. We have, as you know from your site visit, a fairly standard, thank you, a very fairly standard lot in a neighborhood which was developed when 10,000 square feet was the minimum lot requirement. The existing house conforms in every way, and if you approve the special permit, it will still conform in every way, because this is a fairly classic Bjorkland hearing. Our sole nonconformity is the size of the lot. We conform as to coverage, setbacks, both from the street and sideline. And if you approve the special permit for the construction of a garage on the north side and an addition in the rear, much of which will be built over an existing deck, we will remain compliant. So with that, I'll go into, and there are the site plans as shown, not a gambrel. We have a simple full cape, and it will remain a cape, although we'll have a couple of doghouse dormers on the front. As to the criteria, including adequacy of site, including building coverage and the setbacks, the site is certainly adequate for the existing home built under prior zoning, and it will remain adequate for the addition at the rear and the construction of a garage. As I indicated, it will be completely compliant as to coverage and setbacks. As to compatibility of size, on the third page of the handout, as you know from having been out there as well, all of the neighborhood lots are non-compliant as to size. The current house with coverage of 7.8% is tied for the smallest in terms of percentage in the neighborhood. If you approve the special permit, you can do so based on the finding that it will remain compatible and appropriate, except for the cottage colony units across the street. Most of the houses on Captain Richards have garages, and the additions, again, comply with the dimensional requirements of our bylaw. As to the extent of increase in nonconformity, our sole nonconformity is the lot size. That will not change. There is no increase in nonconformity. As to suitability of the site, it has been developed for residential use for approximately 40 years. There are no wetlands in proximity. The site is suitable for the additions. There are no environmental issues, no impact on the natural environment. Scale, sighting, mass, views, and vistas, and effect on the streetscape is indicated, and as you know, we have a full cape. The scale is in keeping with, but smaller than, most of the other houses in the neighborhood. There's no impact on views and vistas. The scale and the mass will not be impacted by the addition of a garage or the dormers, and most of the addition is, again, at the rear, and thus without impact on streetscape. Views and vistas are not at issue. Compatibility of use, there's no change. There's no change in the number of bedrooms. The Board of Health has no concerns. Harold and Susan are contemplating at some point coming up here on a more year-round basis, perhaps for eventual retirement, as you can tell from looking at Harold but not Susan. The issue thus is whether the proposed construction of a conforming garage, dormers, and an addition at the rear is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the conforming structure on a non-conforming lot. As I indicated, it is a classic Bjorkland petition, certainly not far from mansionization against which, or about which Bjorkland was concerned, and it will remain a reasonable and appropriate house. Again, adding a garage makes it more rather than less compatible. There is a modest expansion of living space, but it's more conducive to the family's eventual plans for the property. So I think that you can find that the proposed additions to be built in complete compliance with all bulk and dimensional requirements of the bylaw are in fact not at all detrimental to the neighborhood, and certainly not substantially more detrimental. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, we have one correspondence. Judith Giorgio, our health agent, writes on 8/13/2024 that she reviewed the requested additions and renovations, and the Property is connected to town sewer. The plan does not add sewer flow to the property and is acceptable. She has no concerns. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question? If so, please make it known. Before we go to questions from the board, I'm going to go to the building commissioner because I think we talked about a possible issue he wants to bring up.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm always just a little concerned for a property owner when the setbacks don't allow any room for error. And you can see the dimension calling out 15 feet proposed to the addition. If during construction they're off even a little bit, it may cause the applicant some additional expense to correct the situation or a delay to modify the structure, or they might even need to seek a variance. So I'm just concerned with that. It meets the bylaw at 15 feet. If they can build it at 15 feet, then there's no issue, but I always have a little concern.
Yep, we're always trying to
Thank you.
help the applicants.
We
Yeah.
appreciate that, Madam Chairman, and Mr. Briggs. Mr. Speakman is also the builder as well as the engineer, and I know that he understands that measurements are to the outer corner board. So if we plan to make this 15 and a half feet, it would probably be better to just allow for any issue. But the corner boards are counted, and Mr. Briggs doesn't really want to see us, nor does Chairman Potash in the future.
No? Okay. Questions from the board? We'll go around this way. Dave Beach?
I have no questions, sir.
Questions, Ed?
There's a couple questions. Do you happen to know what the average lot size is in that neighborhood?
All of the numbers, well, not all, but not because of the condo colony across the street. They range from 13,000 to 17,000, so it's probably about 13.8, just eyeballing these numbers.
Yeah.
It's on the
And-
third page in the left column.
I seem to be misplaced.
Of course, neighborhood, as you know from last week's discussion, is interesting. The neighborhood, in one sense, the motel behind us is an immediate abutter, but I didn't include that lot size because it's not part of the same neighborhood, even though it's immediately next door.
Okay. No, this lays it out for me. Thank you.
Dave Nixon?
Just a quickie, was this a cottage colony at one time?
On the other side of the street.
Yeah, it was.
And still is on the other
Oh,
side.
it's- yeah.
Well, it's been condominiumized.
Okay.
There are,
'cause-
what, 7 or 8 units over there? You may not know, but there's a number of 7 or 8 units across the street.
Okay, but that's what's
5.
happened. Okay, thank you.
And Paul, questions?
No questions.
And Lee?
No questions.
Steve?
What becomes of the patio and the deck? Is it ever going to get rebuilt? or
Well,
it's
the
gonna
deck may not. A patio you can do without zoning board of appeals approval. I don't know if that, I didn't mean to steal your thunder. If, Mr. Burke, if you want to answer, you have to come up
He
here.
would have to come up. If it's worth it to you, go ahead up.
Or you want to repeat it to me and I'll, either one.
Sorry.
We haven't contemplated a deck at this point. We will have patio hardscape. The existing house will be short of by about, I don't know, 5 or 6 feet from where the existing deck is. But we haven't completely ruled out the possibility of maybe putting a very short deck. But I don't think that it counts as coverage unless it's got a roof over it. That's my understanding.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
Thank you.
And Jenny, questions?
No questions.
No questions. Okay, Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Beach seconds and votes yes.
Yes,
And Jenny?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
as do I. Okay, deliberations. Steve?
I think it's a nice project. The portico breaks up the front of the house nicely, so it's not just flat. I think it's a nice project. As long as you could, stay within that setback, I think it'll be great. Good luck.
All right, Paul?
I agree. I think it's certainly not more substantially detrimental to the neighborhood, and it'll be helpful for them.
And Dave Nixon? Deliberations.
it's in no way is this in any way detrimental to the neighborhood. It's a plus.
And Ed?
Yeah, not substantially detrimental to the neighborhood. It looks like it will be the, highest lot coverage in the neighborhood based on the size of the lot, but it certainly looks like it's going to fit in fine.
And Dave Veach?
Yeah, I agree with all previous.
Ginny?
As do I.
And Lee?
As do I.
Okay, Paul?
I'll move to approve the application as submitted. I guess the question is, would our standard conditions make sense here?
The question is, if I could, Mr. Speakman, if you start on September 15th, can you complete exterior work by June 30th? Yes? That being the case, I wouldn't advocate for the so-called standard conditions, but it would seem to be acceptable.
All right. Well, I'll move to approve the application as submitted with the conditions that all construction activity and vehicles shall be contained on-site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner. And between June 30th and Labor Day, no exterior construction will be allowed. No work shall be permitted on the weekends, and construction activity between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Yes?
Ginny?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
as do I. It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Well, we're going to have a 5-minute break, so we'll be right back. we're back, and we are now going to 109 Shane Drive, 24-0820, whenever you're ready.
Application number 24-082, Andrew Pinkowitz, care of William F. Riley Esquire, P.O. Box 707, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owner of property located at 109 Shane Drive, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 15G, Block 74, Lot B28A. The applicant proposes to change, alter, or expand a non-conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the construction of a partial second-floor addition and additions. The existing dwelling is non-conforming in that it is located 38.4 feet from the road and 24 feet from the Inland Conservancy District. The proposed partial second-floor addition will be non-conforming in that it will be located 39.5 feet from the road where a 40-foot setback is required. And the enclosed porch will be non-conforming in that it will be located 18 feet from the Inland Conservancy District where a 25-foot setback is required. The existing building coverage is 2,336 square feet, 12.4%, and the proposed building coverage is 2,698 square feet, 14.3%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 18,900 square feet of buildable upland where 20,000 square feet is required, and contains 27,319 square feet in an R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
What is that?
Riley, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Bill Riley on behalf of Andrew Pinkowitz. Andrew is in the back row. So Andrew and his wife have owned this property for 12 years. And you can tell he's still a young whippersnapper, but he and his wife are planning for the long term. And they hope, they love the community they live in, Bishop's Terrace, and they hope to retire there someday. So when they decided they needed more room in the house for them and their daughter, they retained the services of Gordon Clark, the architect, Gordon. And so what I'd like to do, if we could start, is have Gordon explain, what the Pinkowitzes asked him to, what their goals were. And, how he made the design to accomplish those goals and the changes that he made in the existing building. Gordon, introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. Gordon Clark with Northside Design Associates, representing the Pinkowitzes. See what we have up there. Do you want to go to the existing conditions first? Okay, so there's elevations of the existing house. It's just a simple ranch. It's kind of an isolated little community. You go in, it's like a roundabout circle with similar houses. There's mostly ranches in there. There's some two-story houses in there. The house is built on a concrete slab, so there's no basement. One of the things that the Pinkowitzes wanted to achieve was, currently the garage has been kind of doubling. They put a desk out there in the summertime, and that's sort of like kind of been an office space, and they needed more room for a bedroom to kind of separate themselves. The bedrooms are on the left side over here, and they wanted to get separated from that and put a new master suite up over the garage with an open area loft where they could have, he could move his desk up there and they could retrieve the garage because they don't have a basement. And they would get some storage space back and be able to park the car in there. So we tried to keep the design simple, in keeping with what's there. They also wanted to improve the looks of the house, and we hope we've done that. We added a porch across the front of the house to kind of break that up, so that's a nice space out there. It comes out about 6 feet, and that'll give them shade in the front of the house. Breaks that up, and there's a gable in the center there. The way this house was designed originally was that the larger or wider part of the house is to the left as you face this. And there's a narrower section there So it drops down, that's where the cupola is. So we put a gable in the middle there to kind of duplicate sort of the gable on the other end and balance it off so that our design was more balanced with on one side and the other, and that sort of hides the break in the roof. It's basically a simple addition. There's a stairway that goes up to the second floor. The height of the second floor is approximately the same height. We used a little bit taller floor joist because, again, the first floor is sitting on a slab, so we've got a little bit taller floor joist. I think we used 11 7/8 TJIs up there, so that boosted that height up just slightly. Currently, the house is right around 15 feet, the existing house, 14 and some change. And we added 7 feet, 7.5 inches, I believe, to the height with that second floor. The roof is the same height as what it was before. So the total house is a little over 22 feet now, which is not an extremely high house and way under the limitations, I believe, for Chatham. The grade does not change here. We're on the same grading. That remains the same. In the back part of the house, we added a screened porch. For summer living, they go out there and there's a little patio out back there where they could barbecue and so forth. That's not seen from the front of the house. That's out in the back. You can see it on this elevation here. If you want to go to photographs of the house, I think we have, just so you get a sense of the actual house. Sits on a little bit of a rise, but the lot is, once you get up to a little bit of a rise, the lot is flat. So we feel that this is a modest addition. It'll give them the space that they need, and it'll be trimmed, and the shingles and everything, the materials will be all in keeping with what's there now. So we feel it'll fit within the neighborhood. There is a grove of trees out in front of the house. I believe a neighbor was hoping that they wouldn't cut them all down, and they don't plan to do that. That gives a little screening from the street and scale to the house because the trees are in front of it. So I think the impact from the street view will be rather minimal. Essentially, that's it. If the board has questions or.
Thank you. Yeah, I think he did your job, Mr. Riley. As far as two of us at least are concerned, the criteria has been reviewed. What do you think?
Do you want me to talk longer?
No? No? We've all been out to the site, just so you know. It's an
Okay.
obligation that we have.
They want me to talk shorter is what they want. So I'll just run through the criteria.
Well, he already did, but if you insist.
Well, adequacy of the size of the site. We're not expanding the footprint except for the screened-in porch. Andrew says the reason for the screened-in porch is the wetland behind, and the mosquitoes are brutal in the summertime. The compatibility, we fit in the neighborhood. The only increase in nonconformity is living space, and the screened porch is a little closer to the vegetated wetland. Site is suitable. They've been to the Conservation Commission, and we think, the job that Gordon has done melding the second floor into the existing house is admirable. His suggestion to add the porch roof in front of the house really helps the design. It takes some of the blandness off the design, just improves the look. So we think that the proposed changes are not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structure.
Thank you. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Please make it known if so. Seeing none. Two correspondences include a note from Judith Giorgio on 8/13/2024. She's our health agent. She reviewed the plan to add a second floor addition to the property. The property was approved, septic installed for the existing 3-bedroom property. No additional flow is proposed. The existing bedroom on the first floor will be converted to a walk-in closet, and the office on the second floor will have an open rail at the stairs in a 5-foot casing opening. This meets the requirements of the health division. And then conservation says that they met. We have this dated July 30th, 2024. The applicant submitted a notice of intent. It was heard by the commission on July 10th and 24th of 2024. The project is scheduled to be heard again on August 28th for an order of conditions. There's a fly here, that's why I keep doing that. And is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against or has a question about this application? Seeing none. Questions from the board? We'll just go around from this way.
I have no questions.
Ed?
No questions.
No questions?
Paul?
No questions.
No questions.
No questions?
No questions.
And I have no questions either. Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
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 And yes. Okay, deliberations. Ginny?
I think it's a terrific project. We had a wonderful tour by Mrs. Pinkowitz. Very thorough update, and you did a nice job with your update as well, Mr. Riley. So I think it meets all of our criteria.
Okay, Steve?
I think it's a nice project. It should add a little life to that house and be nice. The only thing I was concerned with, which was addressed, was the addition of the porch in the back and making it closer to the BBW, but you explained why that's important to have. So I think it's a nice project. Good luck.
I agree with Ginny and Steve. I think it's a great project, meets our criteria. It's going to be really nice.
And Paul?
Certainly not more substantially detrimental to the neighborhood. I will support it.
I agree with everybody.
Ed?
Yeah, it's interesting, when I drove around the neighborhood, that triangle with the vertical trim, it looks like it's a detail throughout the neighborhood. It's not, I saw it a few times in there, so I think it's nice that you've incorporated that into the design, so. Certainly not substantially detrimental to the neighborhood and meets our criteria.
Yeah, I agree with all previous. Not an easy neighborhood to add on to the existing houses. Yeah. And also, it dawned on me once walking through there in that neighborhood and seeing all the garden sheds and everything, realizing all those houses were built on slabs. You know, so everybody is struggling to find storage. So I certainly understand the reasoning for it. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Paul?
I'll move to approve the application as submitted. I guess the question is conditions and what the plans are for construction.
I assume they'll start as soon as they can. I believe you have a builder all set. Yeah, so I would suggest, I'm assuming it'll be done by next summer, but if you want to put in the summer conditions, that'd be fine.
All right, I'll move to approve the application as submitted with the conditions that all construction activity and vehicles will be contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner. Between June 30th and Labor Day, no exterior construction will be allowed. No work shall be permitted on the weekends, and construction activity between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only.
Thank you very much.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
And I vote yes, it's unanimous.
Thank you very
you.
much. That's good. 2 unanimous votes today. That's good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lloyd. Good job.
And the next one's going to be 24-084, 78 Kema Road.
Application number 24-084, JJBC Scott Trust, care of John Scott, 78 Kema Road, Chatham, Mass. 02633, owner of property located at 78 Kema Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 8B, Block 22, Lot H54. The applicant proposes to change, alter, or expand a non-conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the construction of a deck. The existing dwelling is non-conforming, and it is located 15 feet from the Coastal Conservancy District. The proposed deck will be non-conforming, in that it will be located 6 feet from the Coastal Conservancy District, where a 50-foot setback is required. The lot is nonconforming and that it contains 16,375 square feet where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 5B of the protected bylaw.
Okay, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm John Scott. Thanks for seeing us. We are proposing to remove a barbecue deck and a stairway to the deck and instead build a larger deck that'll connect our family room to a deck on the north side of the house. As per an email, I guess I don't need to say anything about the special permit, but I'll just go down with these comments that you asked for. The adequacy of the size of the site in terms of size of the proposed use, the size of the site, 0.38 acres, is appropriate for the proposed use. All land behind our property is town land, and there's no residential lots abutting the rear or the right, the north side of the house. Subtracting the square footage of the barbecue deck and stairway that are going to be removed, the proposal would add about 346 square feet of deck. Suitability of the site for the proposed use is suitable and would utilize airspace over minimally used yard space. The impact on traffic and flow, there'll be, of course, some traffic during construction. And the contractor will be informed of the 15 mile an hour speed limit. There is substantial off-road parking for construction vehicles and will inform the contractor to keep the parked vehicles off of the Kemah Road pavement. The impact on the neighborhood, visual character, including views and vistas. The proposal would have minimal impact on the neighbors. There are no, as stated, there's no residential neighbors behind the home where the proposed deck will be located. Nobody's view would be affected, and there will be minimum ability of neighbors to even see the proposed deck. The adequacy of the method of sewage disposal and source of water and drainage, there would be no change to sewage disposal or drainage. Septic system is located in the front of the house. Adequacy of utilities and other public services, there will be no utilities or public services affected. Noise and litter, there will be some, of course, noise during construction, but we've located the proposed deck away from neighbors, so that wouldn't affect them. Compatibility of the proposed use of the surrounding land uses. Many neighbors have large decks and or patios, so the proposed deck would be compatible with the neighborhood. Impact on the natural environment, including slopes, vegetation, wetlands, groundwater, and water bodies, except possibly during construction. There'll be no effect to the surrounding area. As mentioned in the application packet, the deck will be supported on an existing retaining wall that was required during our 1992 construction of the home. The impact on the neighborhood and town visual character of any formula business establishments. Many neighbors and passersby will never even know that we added the deck. The Cape-style architecture of the home with the added deck would still be fitting for a home in Chatham and in our neighborhood.
Very good, thank you. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, I will read the two correspondences that we have, one from Conservation Commission and one from our health agent. Conservation writes that the applicant submitted an administrative review that was approved. They must submit a site plan to show the distance of the distance to the resource area. The project, as proposed, meets performance standards of the Protection Act that's applicable. And that was on July 30th, 2024. We received that. Judith Giorgio, our health agent, says she has no objections or concerns about the proposed deck, and she tells us that on August 13th, 2024. Is there anybody here or on the line that wishes to speak against or has a question? Seeing none. questions from the board? Dave Nixon,
Have none.
Ed Afton.
I guess I just have one question. You are going to be supporting the deck on top of this retaining wall, the pre-existing retaining wall?
Yes.
Is that correct? And do you know, it's more of a construction question. I would just say you want to verify that there's a footing or verify the construction of that retaining wall to make sure it's going to support a deck, especially being that high above the ground, would be my only comment, I guess.
I am an engineer. I'm happy with the competence of the wall, but we haven't had anybody look at it. It's not cracked or anything. It's very solid.
Yeah, I think you just want to verify that it goes down at least 4 feet to the frost line, just to be safe. And the building inspector may have more to add to that, I don't know.
Does he?
No, we'll vet that out during the building permit process.
All right, very good. Dave?
I have no questions.
Jenny?
No questions.
Steve?
Have you addressed the issue with the Conservation Commission about providing a site plan to them?
I talked to Paul Whiteman and sent him a plan, but, and he acknowledged that he was going to look at it. So I was a little surprised at the statement that they wanted that.
Okay, well, you might want to just follow up with them and make
Okay.
sure that they got it, because it's going to be a requirement.
Yeah, Sarah has a comment about that.
So they did apply for an administrative review, which I review the conservation applications when they come in for building, or the ARs. And that's when it was triggered that they had to go to zoning. Crystal has since, the wetlands coordinator has since received a copy of the site plan showing the distance, which is 6 feet from the top of bank.
Good, thank you. As long as that's been taken care of, thank you.
Lee?
I just want to confirm that there are no stairs going down into the yard off the deck. And-
There will be no stairs. There
Okay.
is a stairway now
Yeah.
going to the deck we use for a barbecue.
Okay.
But I've never been comfortable with that because it's a stairway behind the house, and it just seemed unsafe for me to have an access to the house from there. So I'm happy now that the stairway won't be there. We still have 3 doorways into and out of the deck. And the front of the deck, the existing deck on the north side of the house is actually just a little bit above grade. So, I mean, an emergency, there would be means of, exiting.
Okay, thank you.
And Paul?
I have no questions.
No, all right, let's,
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Yes.
Jenny? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes, and yes for me. Okay, so deliberations. Ginny, start with you.
I think that it's a great project, it makes a lot of sense. I actually had the same question that Lee did about the stairs being removed completely, but it looked as though that's what you intended, and thank you for the explanation. Not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, meets our criteria.
All right, and Steve?
I think it's a nice project. Looks like you're going to get some improved usage out of your deck. Looks like a good project. Good luck.
Thank you. Lee?
I agree with my colleagues.
Paul?
Certainly meets all our criteria, yes.
It's not detrimental in any way.
Certainly will fit right in, thanks.
I agree with all previous.
As do I. Okay, so Paul, any conditions?
I don't see a need for conditions in this situation. How long do you think it's going to take to do the construction, John? Do you have any idea?
I would imagine just a couple months, but
All right.
you just have to find a contractor.
Assuming you can find a builder, right?
Yeah,
Right.
my builder retired, so.
That sounds like right. All right, I'll move to approve the application as submitted.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
I vote yes.
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 As do I. It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank
Very
you.
good presentation. And we're moving on to our last application. When Sarah's ready to read that, 24 Avalon Point Road. We're talking about stairways.
Application number 24-085, Avalon Resident Trust, care of William F. Riley Esquire, P.O. Box 707, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owner of property located at 24 Avalon Point Road, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 12L, Block 15C, Lot L4. The applicant seeks to reconstruct an elevated stairway and landings under Section 4A3A Protected Bylaw. The lot contains 40,914 square feet in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 9, and Section 8D2B of the Chatham Protected Bylaw.
All right, Mr. Riley, we'll just wait for you to pass out your. Thank you. Yeah.
There's no one in the audience here or online.
Okay,
Just see it.
that sounds good to me.
Good afternoon, Bill Riley on behalf of Avalon Point. I think it's the Chathams Trust. There's an existing staircase. The property owner was walking down the staircase. He went through one of the steps. He's got grandchildren. He just wants to rebuild it so it's safe for he and his grandchildren to use. It's the exact same place, approved by conservation. That'll be my presentation, Madam Chair.
All right. Very good. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams? Apparently not, that wishes to speak in favor of this application. Seeing none, I have 3 correspondences to read. One is from, let's see, the Conservation Commission dated July 30th, 2024, Avalon Point Road, was submitted a notice of intent heard by the commission on June 26th. The project is scheduled to be heard again on September 24th for an ordinary conditions. And then we have a note from Rob Riddell. As a neighbor to the applicant for the above, please log in my support. He lives at 18 Avalon Point Road. Signed, Bob. Next, we have a note from Ken Joy. He writes on July 29th, 2024, as an abutter, I received notice of the application to be heard in the upcoming ZBA hearing. I support this application, replacing the current stairway to the beach in the interest of both safety and comfort for the Brown family and their guests. Please read the letter of support into the record during the meeting. That concludes our correspondences on that application. Is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or as a question? There is nobody here and nobody on Microsoft Teams, so I'll take that as a no. And go to questions from the board. Ginny?
2 questions, Mr. Riley. The width of the staircase is changing a little bit,
Yes, it is.
just a couple of inches, is my understanding.
Right.
Yeah, okay. And then, what about access to the, I saw conservation and everything, and read in the packet that everything's gonna be hand-done because there is no access to that anymore? The access has been cut off?
Well, there's no room for machines to get down there, no.
Well, they had machines down there when they did bank stabilization recently, but, so I just wanted to make sure that access wasn't an issue, I guess is my question.
No, I mean, there's plenty of room on his lot. I mean, you have a new house, which was agonizing to get you guys to approve. Well, I shouldn't say that, but it only took us 3 times here to get it approved. But there's plenty of room along the sideline
Okay.
for
thank you.
access. And they were all wonderful meetings, by the way, those 3 meetings.
Yeah, yeah. We give you a reason to live, don't we?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Steve, questions?
I don't have any questions.
And Lee?
No questions.
Paul?
No questions.
No questions.
Ed?
No questions.
Nor do I have questions.
All right.
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
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 And yes, okay, deliberations. David Nixon.
Makes total sense. Mr. Brown was there when I went out there, and he explained how he fell through. And he really doesn't want to do it again, and particularly at this family and guests. So it sure makes sense to me.
Very good. Ed?
No, certainly a set of stairs in the same exact location. I have no issues.
And Dave Veach?
Yeah, I didn't know about the falling through. I couldn't, from the top and looking down, I didn't see anything wrong necessarily, other than the width. It looked like they wanted to widen it. The only, I guess, other comment that I would make with respect to a set of stairs like this is that I'm sure the contractor will pay very close attention to the fastenings that they use, because that can make all the difference, especially if you're using cleats on the ends of those treads, would say, any failure of a fastening, and you got a problem, so.
All right, very good. Jenny?
Yeah, something else I noted in the write-up was that it looked like it was a very environmentally sensitive proposal, the construction part of it. So I think it meets our criteria.
Yep. And Steve?
I think in the interest of safety and the avoidance of insurance companies, it's probably a good idea, so I have no issues.
And Lee?
I have no issues with this either.
Paul?
I think it clearly meets all our standards. I'll move to approve the application as submitted. I'm not sure we have a need for any conditions here, given the neighborhood and the isolation and so forth. So I think just move to approve as submitted.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
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 And it's unanimous, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and have a nice night.
Thank you. I will.
So, we need a motion to adjourn? A motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
We all vote on that, Ed?
I vote yes.
Yes.
Jenny?
Yes.
Steve?
Steve votes yes.
Yes.
And yes.
As do I, and what time is it?
5:05 PM.
How do you like that? Good night, Chatham.